Reggie here, and I want to welcome you to another one of my videos. This weekend, I finally had a chance to watch Guardians of the Galaxy 3. I don't go to the theater all that often, so I waited and I watched it here at home, and I honestly enjoyed this movie. I can see for a fact why the movie made as much money as it did. It is also very clear to me why audiences gave this movie such a high score when it comes to Rotten Tomatoes. And it's also very apparent why a lot of people personally told me that they enjoyed this movie. Generally speaking, this is a franchise that I've always enjoyed. I've watched both of the previous installments multiple times, and I have a feeling that I'm going to watch this one a couple of times as well. From a cinematography standpoint, from a storytelling point, from just the creative visual interpretation of this movie, I honestly enjoyed it. Even the parts with Rocket Raccoon were surprisingly touching. I honestly did not expect to be interested in that part of the story despite what people had told me, but it was actually some pretty solid character development, and I've never been a big Rocket Raccoon fan in any way, shape, or form, but I was pleasantly surprised by the way that they chose to tell this story. The other thing that I will tell you about movies and TV shows, whether they be Marvel or DC, is that when I watch these movies, for whatever reason, it compels me to take an interest in the source material. And maybe it's because I'm a comic book collector, but whenever I watch one of these movies or TV shows, I automatically want to dig into the source material. And here's the thing. I have never been a huge fan of the High Evolutionary. I don't know anybody that would say that they are a High Evolutionary fan, but I've spent some time this weekend reading stories involving the High Evolutionary, along with some of the other folks that were involved in the movie. But to me, that's one of the cool things about seeing this IP come to life on the big or small screen. It drives me to dig into the source material, and maybe that holds true for you as well. And if it does, I would definitely be interested to hear what you all's thoughts are down in the comment section. But as a result of watching this movie and enjoying this movie, I decided to dig into the collection. I dug into the immediate collection here in the room, but I also went into the extended collection, and I tried to find some cool books from both that had some ties to the movie, and I'm actually going to show some of those cool books to you guys right now. There are some I realized that I don't have. I thought that I had certain books, but when I went to go look for them, I didn't. And it's one of those things where sometimes you see a cover so much that you believe that you own it, but you really don't. And so that was a little bit of a surprise for me with a couple of books. Probably with this first one, more than some of the others. I went to find the first appearance of Nebula, and I did not have it, but I managed to find her second appearance. This is Avengers issue number 258, a really cool cover right there, featuring some of the Avengers, and who is that? Fire Lord. There you go. I did a video a couple of years ago on the Heralds of Galactus, and Fire Lord was one of the heralds that I took a look at. But a really cool book. I want to say I have maybe 2 copies of that in the collection. I have not yet read that one, but I will get to it here shortly. This next book is a cool book. I actually have, I think, like 3 or 4 copies of this, all in the extended collection. I didn't buy a single copy of this. This was in the extended collection of 100,000 comics. This is Fantastic Four issue number 11, and I'm not sure what volume this is, but this is a Chris Claremont story, and this is the first appearance of her, and I guess Aisha is what she became known as a little bit later. But a cool cover there. Again, this is one that I have not read, but I'm hoping to dig into this weekend. This next one is a book that I've had in the collection for several years now. It is a cool book. It could definitely benefit from a press, but I probably will never get this one graded. This is another FF book, but this one's volume 1. This is Fantastic Four issue number 66. What lurks behind the beehive is the call out there, and I have read this one several times, not this weekend, but in years previous. And this is actually the origin of him, later known as Adam Warlock. Really cool book. I've always been an Adam Warlock fan ever since I was a kid with Thanos Quest. I read everything that came out in the 90s involving Adam Warlock. There was something about that character that just captured my imagination. I will tell you, I don't know how I feel about the version of him that we see in Guardians of the Galaxy 3. But maybe that is a story for another day. Next up, we have Infinity Crusade issue number 1. And I definitely have 3 copies of this one. And this is the first full appearance of the goddess. I want to say I picked these, at least one of these up as part of a collection that I purchased, I think out of Berkeley several years ago. I'm honestly not quite sure where the others came from, but a really cool foil cover right there. Probably doesn't show up on screen very well, but a very cool book. Again, not a book that I've read recently, but I will try to take a look at that this weekend. This next book is a cool book. This one goes back to my original comic book collection from the 90s. The original collection from the 90s, back then, was a big fan of the Guardians of the Galaxy, but a completely different team from the one that we actually see on the big screen. But this is Guardians of the Galaxy issue number 1, and this is the first appearance of Taserface. But this one is also signed by Jim Valentino. Which way his signature goes this way. He signed this back for me when I was a kid, and I don't remember speaking with him, probably because I was just a shy kid, but this is one that has been in the collection for a very, very long time. Cool book. This is a cool book. I have a healthy amount of this run because I don't know if I had a subscription to this one, but I definitely have a ton of copies of this volume in the original collection. So the next stack of books here are all slabs. These are all slabs, and I think every one of these I've had in the collection for several years now. This first one is Thor issue number 134, and this is the first appearance of the High Evolutionary and a couple of other folks. Again, I've read a couple of stories involving the High Evolutionary where he battled Galactus. That was the one that I rather enjoyed that one. But yeah, just a cool, interesting character that, again, I'm just trying to dig into and better understand the character. I'm not necessarily one of those people that is always looking for the differences between what they show in the movie and what they show in the comic. I'm actually very comfortable with them taking departures from the source material to make the story actually work on the big screen. So I'm very comfortable with that, but it's always interesting to see where they make those departures. And again, I have a couple of more books that I want to read about the High Evolutionary this weekend to better understand that character, as well as the departures that they took for the movie. Next up, again, getting back to my buddy Adam Warlock, also known as him. This is Fantastic Four issue number 67. This is one of the early slabs, one of the early keys that I picked up when I came back into the hobby in 2017. Who doesn't love a good Cocoon? That you cannot go wrong with some Cocoon action. Origin and first appearance of him. Really nice copy of this one. This is an 8.5 with off-white pages. Just a really, really cool book. I've seen lots of copies of this where they actually turn brown or a little yellow. This one's really clean. The Thor 134 is a 6.5. I forgot to make mention of that. So go ahead and acknowledge those grades for the folks that are interested in that. And next we have Thor 165, and this is the first full appearance of him also known as Adam Warlock. This one is a 6.5 with white pages. Again, picked this one up several years ago. I actually have 2 copies of this. I have a lower grade that I think is a 4 or 4.5, and then this one is a 6.5. Really cool book right there. And then the last book, this is one of those books that the story behind the book is probably better than the story in the book, at least in this case. This is Invincible Iron Man issue number 55, the first appearance of Drax the Destroyer. This is a cool book. This one is a 9.4 with white pages, and I laugh because when I lived in California, when I was back in the hobby in 2017, 2018, I did a lot of stuff, not crazy stuff, but I did a lot of deals trying to build my collection. And I did a deal with a guy that lived behind a 7-Eleven, and I met him around 10 o'clock or so at night. Went through some long boxes he had on a table, pulled out some really amazing books, and his girlfriend happened to be on the sofa next to me doing her makeup and decided to just reach over and just manhandle a raw copy of this book right here that I found in a Ziploc bag, along with several other books. I picked up Amazing Spider-Man 300 from this guy, some really awesome keys, but she picked this one up, manhandled it, and just kind of set it back down. And I was like, why'd you do that? You know, but had to run to a local bank to pick up some cash, came back, paid the guy, and walked away with some really awesome books. I wish I had had an opportunity to buy the entire collection, but at the time he wasn't selling it. But I did manage to pick up some really awesome books. The Amazing Spider-Man 300 came back a 9.6. I ended up getting that one triple signed, and it might actually be on the wall behind me now that I think about it. But with that said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up. I want to thank you guys for taking the time to watch. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, I definitely want to encourage you to give the video a thumbs up, leave a comment behind. And if you want to reach out to me, you can do that on Instagram at Regie Collects. Take care.
This thing on? Mic check. I just want to make sure y'all can hear me clearly. Yo, should you practice art, or should art be your practice? I had a question, so I asked it, not to anyone specifically, but to my inner God, you know, the one that's gonna be a master, the one that's more than a rapper, the one that's an educator, the one that seeks enlightenment. He travels with concepts, he's got the mindset expansive. He understands that his time combined with travel and concepts makes his mind convex. Sort of like when you look at a brain scan, straight off meditation, we was concaving until we had that eternal dialogue that created our dialect. Now we in distinct rooms with pure souls having them conversations, synergy and combinations. You fly and we waiting, Indian style in the gold.